gentleman came here to see the man of the hour. This gentleman now, this is your 4th or 5th trip out here. 4th.
Is it?
Yeah. Third trip out here. And it's always for the redfish tournament because I couldn't ask for a better person to come out and talk about redfishing to the man that's probably one of the best in the country. You ask anyone about it, and I know it's not.
I haven't even mailed a check.
I know. But you guys look on any website, you guys look on any fishing forum, you look on any Facebook page, and they want to talk about redfish, C.A. Richardson's name is right there at the top. Anybody that has a show on FLW and you see it almost every other day on it, even if it's the reruns, I'll always stop and watch it because you always learn something new. So without any further ado, Mr. C.A. Richardson.
Well, guys, with that type of opening, I hope I can live up to it. I really do.
I get paid to speak.
And honestly, the whole redfish thing was totally by accident with me. That's what I'm somewhat known for, but it was my least favorite fish to catch growing up. Did not care about catching redfish that much. When we grew up, because I'm somewhat old like Mike Mahoney, all we fished for was snook, and we'd like to catch trout and tarpon, and redfish were somewhat of a byproduct that we caught. And as time went on and those competitive tours started to happen, that's when the focus became a lot larger on redfish. And, red fishing is what it is now. It's turned into like one of the biggest target fish across the entire Gulf Coast, both up the Atlantic seaboard and then all the way around to Texas. It's turned into a major game fish. When is your tournament again?
October 5th.
October 5th. In October, that's sort of the end of, or the middle, just after the peak of spawning season for redfish. And what you'll notice is most of the fish in the bay are probably under 3 years old. That means they're probably 26, 27 and smaller. But there's a percentage of them where you'll catch 31, 32, 33, sometimes a 34-incher, and it could be all the way up toward the Courtney Campbell or in McKay Bay. But this time of year, it's spawn season from about late August all the way through about mid-October. So there's pretty good wads of big oversized redfish at the mouth of the bay. Most of them are spawning offshore in big aggregate schools, and they, people believe that they come in and they suck up a lot of 3- and 4-year-old fish and take them back out with them, and some of them come back and some of them don't. But most of those fish that you guys are looking for are going to be on those flats, those barrier islands, and near those deeper passes where there's a high flow of tidal movement. That's where those bigger fish are going to be. So if you're fishing and you've got a great spot at Weeden Island, or you've got a great spot up around, the Kitchen or Bullfrog Creek, there's probably not nearly as many large fish there this time of year as there is if you were fishing closer to the bulkhead, closer to Fort DeSoto Park, down inside some of those barrier islands inside Sarasota. What are the boundaries? Can they go offshore?
No, Tampa Bay, Egmont Key is it?
Egmont Key. Is behind Egmont Key in the deal?
Yeah.
The east side of
The east
Egmont
side.
Key.
There's big fish there too. Some of them will come in with some 39 and 40-inch fish because those fish are there. They're definitely there. They're in the deeper water. But occasionally you catch a few. I think last year the biggest one I caught this time of year was 39 inches, and that was, I'll tell you exactly where it was. It was inside by Sawyer Key at Fort DeSoto Park. I didn't fish this tournament, but I was just out with clients, and Brad caught one with his dad, and caught one that was 39 inches. As far as tactics to catch redfish during a tournament, it's different than when you typically go fishing. Like when I'm taking clients fishing, we go fishing based off, we're trying to fish for results, we're looking for a couple of trophy fish, and we're just fishing along. We're not under the stress of a tournament where it's fish. For you to go through numbers of fish and cover ground quickly, you're gonna have to do what we call power fishing. Power fishing is more of a technique where you're not fishing the traditional style of fishing. You're fishing like Kevin Van Dam or Hank Parker. It's just fire it, reel it in, fire it, reel it in. And there's only going to be certain lures that are going to fit into that criteria, to cover that kind of water and find a fish. Is it just artificial, or is it once you find the fish, now I'm changing my whole lesson plan. Once you find the fish, you'll take ladyfish out. Once you find the fish and you're sure that the size school that you're looking at is going to produce fish over 30 inches and give you a chance, yeah, then you could switch to cut bait or something like that and start catching numbers of fish. But generally, to find the fish, is it a whole weekend or is it just
About 8 hours.
8 hours? You got 8 hours to do it. I would be fishing a spoon or a large paddle tail, something like this on a 4-ounce jig head. A bigger one.
That color doesn't work at all, you just let everyone know.
4.5
Color terrible.
Terrible. I would be fishing something like that where you can cover a lot of water and it'll give you the opportunity to catch more fish. You know, when it's all said and done, he who casts the most, and that's how those tournaments used to be won in the day, usually ends up law of averages with the most fish. So, because there's no slot limit on this, that was always the fallacy with competitive tournaments, is you had to catch one between 18 and 27. So, Tiger might catch 30 fish, but if he didn't catch one that was between 26 and 27, he's a terrible fisherman. And then two people that had a puncher's chance that caught one apiece, and they happened to be between 26 and 27 would beat him. But see, this is the largest redfish, so it's just about catching the largest one. So it behooves you to catch as many fish as you can. And covering water in those zones that I'm telling you to cover are probably going to be the best deal. Now, I have not looked at the tides for October 5th, but typically if you're going to fish a shallow flat, you're not going to fish edges, you need incoming water. Incoming water is going to be the most productive to get redfish to be aggressive, is incoming tides behind those barrier islands. You're going to catch a lot of snook there right now too, that are going to sort of get in the way, because a lot of them that are pushing off the beach and pushing out of the passes live up on the back side of those barrier islands when the tide comes in. So you're gonna catch a lot of nice fish there. You'll probably catch a couple of nice trout there too, because a lot of the trout that are in those deeper passes move up on those flats that are adjacent to that deeper water. This time of year, the water is still extremely warm. So they're gonna wanna stay close to zones where cooler water is gonna penetrate that flat and drift up there. Those still low oxygen zones, McKay Bay, Upper Bay, and stuff like that, they don't provide a lot of oxygen. You'll find some fish there, but it's nothing like the mouth of the bay. I focus mostly this time of year when I do fish here in this area. I fish a lot around the mouth of the bay. You're going to do really well from basically, you know, probably Port Manatee, working on down the Southshore into Sarasota Bay itself and around the corner to Anna Marie. You're going to do well over there in Fort DeSoto Park, assuming they can fish all the way up north into Caladesi and Honeymoon and stuff. All those areas up there in Dunedin, they have some large redfish on those zones right now too, for the same reason. So don't discount that a bit. Some of the lures that, if I'm going to just pick lures that I would throw just to find fish quickly, I would throw probably some of those big Mirror Lure Pro Series topwaters. Have you guys seen those yet? It's just like the Top Dog Junior, but what they've done after much, I guess, ribbing, because I would hear a phone call from Eric every once in a while about, why are you showing those baits on TV with upgraded hooks and split rings, because there'd be black nickel hooks on there. Well, they've made a bait now that has, you know, XX strong split rings, and they have 4X strong hooks on it. These are the type of hooks that can hold on to a really big redfish, and you'll be able to land it without straightening the hook out. That is the new Top Dog Junior. It's the Pro Series. That's the one you want. You'll notice it has clear eyes. You want me to sound like the catalog. Contemporary paint color. When I listen to Mike Tinian talk about it, I actually laugh. I was like, boy, that doesn't sound like you. But these baits, they're in a lot of the live bait series. They look like speckled trout. They do a great job. Another really good choice is going to be to throw a spoon. I have a white spoon on this rod here, and that's just because that's what we were throwing the other day, snook fishing. But the green spoon that Aqua Dream makes in this willow blade, if you've ever seen that green spoon, it's the spoon that you probably look at and you go, nope, you go right by it. For some odd reason, redfish see the color green I believe, better than almost any other color. They see that color well. So the green aqua dream spoon in the same size as quarter-ounce size will serve you well if you want to catch redfish. The white one catches everything. We catch snook on it a lot, but we also catch, we were down fishing in Inglewood the other day looking for some zones where there would be some snow. And we got caught in possibly the worst thunderstorm I've ever endured in a boat, because it was raining so hard we couldn't get back to the ramp, so we just sat there in it. And then when the lightning started popping, we sort of tucked up inside the mangroves a little bit and just sat there and listened to the bilge run constantly, and it was losing. You know what I mean? It was getting covered up. But when the storm ended, there was so much runoff coming out of those mangroves and coming out of those little creeks that were along those edges by that park. I'm not kidding you. About every sixth cast with a white spoon or a topwater, we caught a snook. It was that, because they just line up in the freshwater runoff. But if you use a green spoon, you'll find that it's really a good choice for those redfish. Most of you probably throw what, a gold spoon? That's pretty much the consensus. They've seen that. So, I'll tell you the last time I threw a gold spoon. I haven't thrown a gold spoon in years. I never really ever throw a gold spoon. I'll throw it in Louisiana because it doesn't matter. That's where I can use them up. But I don't really throw a gold spoon like ever. I throw white ones. I throw the green one a lot. Aqua Dream makes a live bait series now in like 5 or 6 different color, species. It doesn't matter. They don't know it's a pilchard spoon or a pinfish spoon. They see white on one side, silver on the other. All you got to know is it's white and silver. It works. So it's sort of like getting a silver and a white spoon in one. They've got a pink one for different water clarities. It works good north of here, up in Chassawitzka, and really even further north, up in Withlacoochee, where the water's stained and dirty. And I've used it a lot in Charlotte Harbor here when I've gone down there fishing, because their water down there is like wet sand right now. It's so filthy from runoff. But those are the baits that work really well. Other choices that I would consider is Z-Man makes one that I like a lot. I've used it a lot for trout, and I'm starting to use it a lot now for redfish as well. It's a bass bait that Luke Clausen came up with, and it's called the Fatty Z. And it's nothing more than about a 4 or 5 inch worm bait, but it's got a thin spot in the middle, and the tail is more bulbous, and this thing just swims wildly through the water. If you fish it on a really light jig head, you can roll it through the water and it'll just swim like that. It has a crazy wild action. If you know the fish are there, 20% of a redfish diet, or maybe it's like 25, whatever the biology says it is lugworms. They eat lugworms. So if they see this shape, it's just like throwing a crab at them. They instantly say, oh, I eat that all the time. And they just eat it. So it's never a thought process. So worm-like baits work really well on redfish. Once you've got them established and you know they're there. If you want to go to the dark side, you can go catch a couple ladyfish and cut them up and keep them in a baggie and keep them in your cooler. But they take points away at the weigh-in for that. I rig this on a jig head or a Texas hook, Texas style hook, like a weighted hook. On a lot of these baits, if I Texas rig it and I'm wanting it not to slip, I'll tie a clench knot, and then I'll slide the head of the bait over the top of the clench knot. It somewhat holds it there. The real trick to that is probably to put a spot of glue on it, and it won't come off at all. If you put glue on it, it's there. It's staying. But then it makes it a bummer to re-rig or stretch it off. Got material left on there, but they give them to me for free, so I don't care. Those would be the baits I'd stay with. It's not going to be one of those tournaments where there's a secret little bait that you can use. You're going to want to use baits that you can just cover a ton of water with and work fast. When I get close, I fish out of a skiff. I don't fish out of a big boat. In fact, I'm going on 49 years old, and I've only owned a big boat for 2.5 years of my life, and I hated it because I couldn't fish the way I wanted to fish. I couldn't get close to fish. I always had to make a cast that was like 90 to 150 feet away to catch them. Where I'm used to catching them like right there and catching them. For me, I don't like to have to put the emphasis on the ability to make a super long cast to try to reach fish. If you get up in fish where you get out and wade, that's legal, right? I'm not telling them something they can't do, Tiger. They can wade?
Yep.
Tiger?
Yes.
Yeah, you're
Yes.
good.
Hook and line is it. Hook and line is the deal.
The other day, for instance, we were coming up on a group of tailing fish. I was with a client who doesn't fish artificial like ever. And I had him fishing a Texas rig little pokey bait. And there was a group, and they were all the kind of fish that you guys are looking for, like 31, 32-inch fish. Probably looking for bigger than that, by the way. Don't stop fishing if you got a 31, that's not going to be big enough. But he went to throw it, and he threw it off to the side of this little group of about 9 or 10 fish, and they were literally from me to Steve. And he threw, and he starts to reel, and I'm like, yeah, he's coming. And he didn't see him coming at the bait. So he's like, I messed up, and he started reeling fast. And one charged it and was trying to eat it all the way to the side of the boat. And I was like, oh, boy, you messed up, James. So now the wind's carrying down, and as quiet as a skiff can be when you're working into fish, if I were to stick the push pole in the ground one more time on the downwind side, because that's where we were closing the distance real quick, just that crunch would have sent them running. There was no putting a power pole down or nothing in that case. So I had a little tiny bucktail. I like to throw often a small bucktail, maybe quarter-ounce bucktail with a lot of fur on it. And I like to throw it, not because it's a secret bait or anything like that, it's because the only thing that makes a ripple or a sound is that small little head. So you throw it in there, and you can throw it right on top of them, and they don't even know it's there. It doesn't spook them. I threw it on top of them, and just eased it up one time, bam, hit it, hooked up, handed him the rod, 32-inch redfish. But we were only going to get one shot because it was over. By the time he redelivered the bait, we would have been over the top. But that's how close you can get to the fish. So I'm telling you to throw these bigger, bulkier baits for distance, trying to catch all these fish. But the reality is, some of the biggest fish will just eat peanuts. They'll eat the smallest bait. Fly guys know that. They fish them all the time, little clousers and little seavers, and catch fish that are 40 inches long. I've got some pictures in that iPad that makes that iPad heavy compared to some of the fish we've been out fishing in Louisiana. But the fish here are extremely, good specimens. Tampa Bay is one of the biggest redfish estuaries in Florida, period. It really rivals. There's not too many places in Florida that has the redfish populations that we have. Problem is the habitat's small enough and there's enough pressure by anglers on them that they're tough to catch sometimes, especially, when there's a lot of people looking for them all week long. Good news about this time of year, it's guys like Mike Mahoney are out hunting. They're not out chasing. So it does. It seems weirdly to me, in all my experiences, there's 2 times a year that I like to fish shallow water a lot. When the water temperature is ideal, and that's the fall, and that's the spring. That's when the water temperature likes to stay in the 70s a lot, and that's when fish are, because they're cold-blooded, their metabolism is such that they want to eat. Every lure in your tackle bag generally works on. For me, the fall is better because kids are back in school, the holidays are coming, there's all kinds of home improvement stuff that's got to be done before the in-laws get there. Again, guys like Mike are out hunting, killing stuff. It takes a lot of boats off the water. So, late football season, September, October, November, the flats are quieter than they are in the spring when everyone's jacked up, can't wait to get out of the house and get back in the boat. So there'll be some pretty impressive fishing. I usually try to book almost every day in October and November just because I know the fishing will be so good with artificials. So think about that. You're gonna have a good tournament October 5th. Unless the weather is really inclement, there should be some impressive numbers, some impressive fish. It's not weight, it's just length. Is it photo release or
Photo release?
Yeah, that's what it has to be, I guess, if it's going to be a largest redfish. As far as tackle goes, it really depends on where you're trying to catch them. If you're trying to catch these fish in a pass where there might be a lot of snags, naturally you're going to have to use equipment that's going to leverage a fish out of deeper water. If you're fishing with bait, trying to do something along that. If you're fishing John's Pass or Clearwater Pass along the jetty or something like that, trying to catch big fish. If you're fishing shallow water, which probably 80% of you will be doing, trying to win this thing, redfish, they just run around. They don't make blistering runs like snook, so you can get by with a rod that's going to allow a long cast. 7.5 foot medium action rod, that'll do job. 15-pound braid. Bigger redfish are probably not going to be that line shy, especially the way the color of the water is right now, so you don't got to worry about using 15 or 20-pound fluorocarbon leader. I would focus on like 25 or 30. That way at least you'll catch a snook or have an opportunity to catch a snook. And that's really as simple as it gets as far as knowing where to look, what to do. The tides are always stronger. Question, Sean?
Well, on October 5th, St. Pete, we have a low tide at 8:53, high tide at 3:24, lows of 0.31, highs at 2.19.
So it's a strong incoming tide. It's perfect for redfish. Perfect for redfish.
You're welcome, I picked this.
You never looked at a tide, did you?
The bigger the flat, you have to be there in the middle third of that tide. So if that flat's a big flat, let's just pick one ambiguous, like the bulkhead. The bulkhead's a big flat. That flat would be a weak flat on a quarter moon tide, but a good flat like on a big moon, like a new moon or a full moon. Because it's energized, there's a lot of water flowing over the top of it back and forth. If it's 8 to 2, lows at like 8-ish,
Yeah,
2-ish.
8 something at 3:50.
So naturally, between 10 and 12 is when the water is going to move the most over those flats. That'll be the middle third. Everyone understands that. That's when it's going to be like a third of a knot, maybe up to 4/10 or even a half a knot of speed moving over that flat. That's when those fish are going to be pushing around. It's going to be easier to catch them. That also times with a high sun as well at that point. So if it's cloudy, it'll be game on, and if it's sunny, it might be a little bit tougher, but at least the water's moving, you'll catch fish. So it's a really great tide. So yeah, now you guys need like a 35 or 36-inch fish for sure. So that's a good tide. That's a really good tide. Thank you, Steve, for picking such a good tide. But any question?
You said deep water. What kind of depth are you talking about when you're talking to passes?
Let me give you an example. If you know where Bunce's Pass is, that bisects Fort DeSoto, you're further. If you're fishing the pass that's right there, what is it, New Pass? That's a deeper pass. That's a deep enough pass. Those flats that are just on the inside on both sides, those are the types of flats. And right there inside those edges are where you'll see, bigger redfish this time of year. Anywhere where you get the cool water coming in and it spills up on the flat. It'd be nice to have like an infrared image to see how cool the water and how that strong of incoming tide, it's going to cool the water off a lot. So it's going to push a nice plume of cool water. It's the same thing that we look for in the winter when we're looking for warmer water and we're fishing outgoing tides a lot where the water's been heated up in some black water bays and then they start spilling out here on the South Shore. And then it's like, oh wow, all the fish are biting. Because they've got that warm water coming out and it's getting their appetite up. It's the opposite this time of year. And the first week of October, we don't start getting really cool nights. That's going to make a change in our sea temps here a whole lot, other than the days, if you've noticed, have gotten short. Those sea temps aren't going to start really going down until about the third week of October, and then they're going to start going down. But in the meantime, it's going to be the same steamy, hurricane season's still really full blown until the end of this month, and then it's still, you always have a chance in October. So it'll still be warm. It'll be pretty warm. The sea temps will be warm. So keep that in mind. As soon as it gets to be where it's warmer and it's later in the day, you got to do what you got to. The thing I always try to combat is don't try to run around and look for fish, because that's just a bad thing to do. Don't run around and look for them. If you want to pre-fish, then really pre-fish. Like go out the weekend before, or take some time after work, and go out and look for a few hours. And trolling, you don't have to fish. When I used to fish, even when I did fish competitively, which I don't anymore, lots of times the rod stayed up underneath the gunnel, and we just ran the trolling motor at 8. That's the only time I ever used the trolling motor was then. You just run the trolling motor at 8, and you're just looking. You're just looking to see where fish are. You don't care if you scare them. You're just looking. That's all you want to do is know where they are. But that whole driving up and down, on power in a boat doing it, that's not good for anything. So don't do that. You just squirrel those fish up for somebody else to try to catch them. But if you want to look for them, look at with that trolling motor. You can learn a lot more in 5 hours on a trolling motor because you're going slow. You notice what type of bottom they're sitting on. You notice if there's a drain there. You notice the little things. If there's clump oyster where they're sitting up on, the type of grass they're sitting on. You can't see that doing 40 miles an hour flying over a flat. So take note of all that stuff, because that stuff is pertinent information when you go back there and fish it at a lower angle of sun and you can't see. Every time I would pre-fish tournaments prior to an event, if it was a bluebird sky, I knew I was not fishing that day in practice. All I was going to do is run a trolling motor and look. All I'm out to do is look. If you want to throw something at them, you throw a plug with no hooks on it. You take a mirrodine, take all the hooks off, wing it in there as far as you can. If you saw them twitch, 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 feel them load up on it, and it comes off because it's got no hooks on it. But at least you know they eat them. And if they held onto it for a minute, then you know they're really one. But that's what you're going to do. All that being said, this is as close to a spot tournament as it can get. It's a lucky bite, and it's for a great cause. You're putting money into something that's going to possibly win you a golf cart limo. The thing that thing needs is a kegerator. I'd say screw the LED lights and put a kegerator. But, I mean, all kidding aside, when you're doing club tournaments, it's about you're learning something. It's about the camaraderie. It's about the time before the tournament, the raffle and getting to know everybody. It's about the time that you spend after the tournament telling stories and getting to meet new friends. Winning it is great, but it's no different than a Powerball tournament. It's really not going to determine who's the best fisherman in that room. It really won't. Everyone's got a puncher's chance. You're just going out and someone's going to win a big raffle for catching a big redfish that day. That's really all it comes down to.
What areas in Fort DeSoto do you like? I was gonna ask you about tips not related to the tournament.
Here's what I do the
that-
most. When I fish Fort DeSoto, I try to fish the spots that are out of the way, away from everybody else.
Yeah, I have a canoe, so I was gonna ask you about tips.
Because there's fish that are on all those flats. There's fish. Now there's concentrations of fish, and you know where those are because you'll see like 9 boats sitting on top of them. When I catch fish or someone asks me where I caught a fish, caught it at Tarpon Key, right on the north side, second bite. I send everybody there. I've been known to box one in a cooler and take them over there and take a picture in front of a sign just so I can say I caught them. I used to drive more people there to put them in all my colleagues' fishing holes because I don't want them fishing where I am. But typically, honestly, if you're fishing out of a canoe, if you're fishing out of a kayak, if you're fishing out of a skiff, those types of craft are so unobtrusive, you're going to catch fish on damn near every flat there is out there. Eventually, you're going to drift up on them and you're going to catch them. I never have a plan when I go. I don't have like a milk run that I do. There's certain ridges I know that they like to ride down, but most of the time I can just I'll get up on the causeway flat and pole down from one bridge to the next bridge, and I know we're going to catch 6 or 7 fish if I'm poling. If I'm running a trolling motor, I'll probably catch half that.
What about Cockroach Bay?
I don't fish Cockroach Bay on a regular basis. This is the time of year. In fact, I called a client and told him I was interested in fishing over on this side in front of Cockroach Bay on the 12th and 13th of this month because I know the water's going to be pouring out. We got a good outgoing tide that day. And I was like, well, we can go over there and catch a couple of snook and probably catch a couple of redfish, and the tide will be low at the end of the day. You want to go? And he said, yeah, we'll go. But I don't fish Cockroach Bay a lot. When I did fish Cockroach Bay a lot, I like to fish it in the winter with a small boat because you can get back in there and catch a lot of snook. But typically Cockroach Bay, the Little Manatee, the Kitchen, Bullfrog Creek, all those zones, I mean, in fall, winter, and spring, those are all strong spots. Summertime, I mean, I fished them in the summertime, but there's a lot of floating grass. It makes it tough fishing sometimes, a lot of that floating grass and that hot water. So it'll get better come October. Those zones, October, November, those zones will be much more productive than they are now.
I know you're telling the truth because I was out by Port Manatee and
No, you don't know I'm telling the truth. Trust me. 95% of this stuff comes out of my mouth. That much bigger than what it really
We'll
is.
spit my beer out.
went up to about 90 that day.
Yeah, the temperature?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough. The summer months, well, this is how it is for me. I stopped fishing for tarpon at the end of June because it's hot and I'm tired of, after 40 odd days in a row of holding a boat on the beach or whatever, I'm tired of doing it. So I don't do it anymore. I go to ICAST, whether it's in Las Vegas or Orlando, which is the big tackle show. I come home, I take 2 days to pack all my stuff up, and then I move to a lodge in Louisiana and got there for about 4 or 5 weeks because fishing's easier there. It's just as hot, even hotter there, but the fish are more plentiful and it's easier to catch, and I don't want to struggle here because flats fishing here in the summer is generally tough. It's a lot tougher. You got lots of personal watercraft, you got higher tides, spread fish out, you got grass all over, and everyone uses their boat in the summer. So I avoid this area in the summer. And then I come back in August and I start doing all these, well, let's go fish Yankeetown, let's go fish Charlotte Harbor, let's go fish Lemon Bay. So I fish other zones than here until I like fishing here at the end of this month. So you guys, when you guys start this tournament, that's when I like fishing here. I'll start fishing here more during the week. The weekends. Hard to love it. But that's the truth. That's what I do. Have rod, will travel. I'd rather fish different zones. And and honestly, if you're the type of angler that spends a lot of time fishing the same kind of fishery, we launch from Simmons or we launch from King, and you do the same thing all the time, you get in ruts because you're going to go through stretches where you don't catch a lot of fish and you get frustrated a little bit. It's better to go get frustrated in a brand new spot because at least you don't know what's going to happen. I've never been there before. I've seen this. I don't know what happens. When you're in your home water and you see these same types of things, it's like we're not going to catch anything. You're looking for that hope fish all day. And by fishing in different areas, whether you rode up the St. Joseph Sound and fish, or if you fished Long Bar down in Sarasota, or if you rode all the way to the north end of the bay, or fished McKay Bay, or something different, at least it's something different, and you'll learn something from all those varied experiences. Experience is the sum of mistakes. The more of them that you make, the more you learn from them. And all the places I have fished, I would have never thought places like Galveston Bay, Texas, or Charleston, South Carolina would help me here. But some of the styles of fishing and some of the ways that you catch fish, I do it here. I'll take a spinner bait and just put a large jig head on it, maybe a half-ounce jig head on it, and I'll fish around bridges or docks at night or channels, and I'll catch fish on a spinner bait. No one throws a spinner bait here in Tampa Bay. They don't think fish bite them here in Tampa. The water's too clear. Well, it is too clear. If you're throwing during the daytime in 2 feet of water on a flat, yeah, it's too clear. But if you throw them in deeper water situations with a little bit heavier jig head to slow roll them down banks, you catch a lot of flounder, you catch redfish, you catch snook. You'd be surprised what you catch. So a lot of those types of techniques, take a lipless crankbait and do the same thing. Get a half-ounce Bill Lewis rattle trap, throw it, do the same thing. You'd be surprised what you catch. It's just covering water and learning how to fish a little bit different every once in a while. Just do something different. Don't do the same thing every time because you can't really get any better when you're doing the same thing every trip out. Question?
Do you have a favorite color for that bucktail? Or do you
Well,
put any scent on the bucktail?
My favorite color is white. I'll use white most of the time. If I had to pick some other colors to sort of complement that, the opposite would be to take a really dark color like a black or a purple. Because when you make a color change, you can't make a subtle color change. If you cut white off, they follow it, but they don't eat it. You cut that off and you tie a tan or a sand one on, well, that's not a big change. Probably not going to react the way you want them to react. But if you cut it off and put a darker brown or root beer or a black one on, oftentimes they'll struggle. But at least you'll get an idea of what they want that way. But I like black, I like brown. I do use some sand from time to time on some of the sandier flats that I fish. But I would say that white works the best. And I'd say if I were going to pick 5 of my favorite all-time baits, a bucktail would always make the top 5 every time, just for the reasons of its versatility, how quiet it enters the water. You just got to get proficient. You think an open jig head in a foot of water. When you cast it, you're feathering the line with your index finger the whole way, and just before it stops, you turn a handle over, close the bail, and turn a handle over, and you're running. So it just hits the water and starts swimming immediately. You come to a little pothole, you can let it fall in, hop, 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 dart, 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 up the other side, and then reel it up again, back out. It's all about going out, going back, out, in, out, in, out. And it takes you out of the equation altogether because you can't screw this up. You don't have to set a hook or anything. It comes tight, it's on, you're still reeling, he's hooked up. That's all there is. when I fish clients, sorry, Dick.
Yeah, the road now.
Spoons, bucktails, paddle tail jigs, 1/4 ounce paddle tail jigs, or 1/8 ounce if it's real shallow and they're not reeling fast enough. Those are the types of baits that you throw out, bring back in, throw out, bring back in. We're just covering water. The secret is the fact that I'm letting them make 600, 700, 800 casts a day, and they're catching fish. It's not that I catch fish any better than any other guy in this bay. But when you just go out, you just throw a DOA out, shrimp, and you just work it slowly. You just can't cover enough water. It's a great bait if you know the fish are there. But if you don't know the fish are there, you have to cover water. And most of the guys, George included, that fish with me, we fish these power baits all day long, and we catch numbers of fish. And for no other reason but the law of averages. They're like, wow, we did pretty good today. We caught 5 redfish, had a snook on, caught a bunch of trout. But if we broke it down per cast, how many they caught, they'd be like, oh, no wonder. I woke up the next day, I felt like I hadn't played golf. I hadn't played golf in 8 years. And it feels like their guts are coming out because they're not used to casting that much, unless you really like to cast a lot. And you're not used to it, your hands start to hurt, and it wears you down as the day goes on. But you build a tolerance up to that as you start to fish this way, because the attraction to fishing the style that I fish most of the time is the fact that it's the learning the patterns and catching and fooling fish, by imparting the action yourself and catching the fish. You're not dependent on a live bait. You're learning something as the day goes on. So it's more about the process of catching the fish versus the actual results.
I think your gear helps out a lot there too, with the casting with lighter weight rig.
As far as the higher gear ratios?
Well, as far as.
Oh, yeah, mine does, because a lot of the gear that I use is fairly light. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that's
weigh a
what
whole lot. This is a little 3000 that's made by Falcon, and the rod's a 7.5 foot rod, so when you're using gear that you're going to make lots of casts, naturally, the lighter the gear, the less the fatigue. I use a bait caster a lot. A lot of people say, well, why do you use bait caster? Well, first of all, I'm in a skiff. Again, I don't have to cast as far. I just have to cast accurately. Second of all, this weighs a lot less because it's a shorter rod with less hardware on it and a smaller profile reel. And my hands are ate up with arthritis from casting so much forever. So to me, this is a lot more comfortable to use all day long. So the truth is, that's why I use it. I'd rather use a casting rod. So it's just those little things that make fishing, like tackle artificial, or even, trying out fly and getting yourself to another level. That is a lot of fun. Fly fishermen, I used to believe when I was, a teenager and a 20-something, oh, those guys don't catch anything. They're just flailing around. Trust me. If you're fishing, if you're a true fly fisherman and that's what you do, and I know a lot of them, you've got to be a damn good fisherman, because you have to understand exactly where the fish is. The cast has to be precise, and it is definitely a skill that has to be developed over time. So that's a lot more challenging.
You mentioned cut pin fish and ladyfish. I was curious as what kind of presentation
None.
you use. Free line or like?
Probably your best tactic, if you're using something that has the parabolics of a rod like this, it loads real easy. You could probably get away with a 3 or a 4/0 size circle hook, and you're just gonna, let's just say you've got a hunk of ladyfish about that big, you're gonna just skin it through the side of it. That's all you're gonna do. You don't want to stick it deep into the meat, because then you're not gonna be able to get the hook through. And you basically don't need any weight. You want it to get out there, land, and sort of lay on top of the grass or in a hole, and just let it sit there and let pinfish literally hit that thing like a boxer hits a speed bag for about 10 minutes. They'll put enough particulate and oil in the water that you'll just see a slick coming up behind it. And as soon as they stop beating on it, Rusty showed up, because he's nothing but a seagull with fins. You just let him eat it, and you let him swim away with it, and take yourself out of the equation. You even have it in a rod holder and do nothing. You will catch them. You will catch them. It's just, I had these guys in Louisiana, and at the risk of sounding sort of, rednecky.
Easy.
Easy, I know, picking on your
We're in
family.
Florida.
But I was on this ferry, I had missed the ferry. And so my clients are sitting in the cab of the truck. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna go back there and take some leader off and put new leaders on, do a few things. A couple other guys showed up with their boats and stuff, and they were all parked behind me, and we were gonna have to get on the ferry. And this is my Louisiana trips. Well, one of the guys had a real beat up boat, and he was a real simple local guy. And he comes over the side of the boat, and he was asking me about the power pole. He had never even seen one. And I'm like way down southeastern Louisiana. I mean, simple people. And he's looking at me, and I'm tying this spinner bait up, and he's like, "You cast that all day?" And I was like, "Yes, sir, I cast it all day long." I was like, "I'm gonna catch it too." He goes, "That don't sound too relaxing." I looked at him and I was like, now see, that's what I took away from that experience, is the fact that some people fish for a different reason. He's fishing on Saturday to relax, because he knows he's going with his mama to church the next day. And I fish because I want to fish intensely all day, because it's a release for me. So it depends on what you want to do. That's the difference of fishing, cut bait, fish, whatever, versus a guy that wants to throw a fly rod, or a guy that wants to sit there and beat the water to a froth with plugs. So it's really what you want to get out of it. And from day to day, I can tell you, success is measured a different way. It's like, if you're a sales guy, you know that. Some days, you get them, some days you don't. And no one gets them every day. You can minimize the damage by being a good angler, but no one gets them every day. There's, in a 30-day period, there's about a third of them that are great days to fish, and there's a third of them that you got to work at, and there's a third of them that are just absolutely terrible days to fish that you just got to make it somehow happen. And guides, tournament anglers, and things like that, they don't have the luxury of picking those days. But you learn little things as time goes on that puts you in a position where you can catch a few, even on the tough days. And I know as weekend anglers, that might be a little bit tougher for some of you guys, but when people say, well, how do you measure, what explains consistency for you? I was like, well, I was very irresponsible for a long time. I was a very undependable employee because I'd rather fish than do anything. And if you fish enough, you'll start to learn the little nuances of, well, this flat's alive at this time. And keeping a log and all the stuff that you've heard in every free seminar that you've ever been to, all that's true. Now, how many of those guys practice that, I don't know. I keep logs based off the zones that I fish. I don't keep one for here because I'm an old guy here, and I've fished here all my life. But for Everglades National Park, I keep a log. For Louisiana, I keep a log. Jacksonville, I keep a log because I like fishing those zones, and I'm not there every day, so I don't know exactly what's happening. So it helps me to know, record tide height, wind direction, water temp, all those little things that matter to fish, because they're only driven by a couple of things: food, temperature, refuge, and spawn. Those are the three things. Sure, I can have one more. I've got my daughter here that can drive, and actually she's driving. I've got a designated driver. I just thought about that. Although she was terrified when we drove over the Skyway today, so I don't know if she can handle that. But yes, in short, fishing is just a wonderful journey that you enjoy from the time you're 8 to 80. I mean, you just never get tired of it. I talk to people all walks of life, whether they're professional people or simple people. Everyone does fishing for just one or two little reasons, and most of it is it's a release. It makes you relax. That's what got me into it when I was a child. I enjoyed it a lot because it was an escape for me, and to this day, I still have a good time every time I go, whether I'm working or not. I feel guilty taking George's money and Dickie's money.
We weren't there.
But not that. questions, I can tell you guys backstories about Flats class or how it got started or whatever.
Sorry if I start charging for the sandwich.
As long as you don't charge by weight.
Yeah.
I always expect to find like a cardiologist card at the bottom of that wrap.
Definitely better low calorie this time.
So where did you grow up and learn to fish?
St. Pete.
Okay.
St. Pete. I was a pier rat and fished the beaches a lot. And we waded the flats of Fort DeSoto and the Skyway Causeways a ton. We used to camp out there in an old army tent, the kind where if you touch it, it starts to drip water. And I would watch television shows like Orlando Wilson and Roland Martin and shows like that. I'd watch all the bass shows because there was really, at that point in time, there was no saltwater television other than if you watched Worldwide of Sports and saw Kirk Dowd or something like that. There wasn't any real true. Every once in a while you'd see something with Stu App or Flip Pallet, and then until Walker's Cay came along.
Nothing knows about Gaddis.
But those were the sort of the beginning. And when I would fish with my father, I was a product of his second marriage, so he was older. So he wasn't into let's wade, and he wanted to have a bait bucket, and he'd rather me throw a cast net and get a bunch of white bait and some pinfish, and just shiner fish with corks all the time with finger mullet for speckled trout mostly. And it was just too boring for me. It was like going to hunt camp. I never got the bug for hunting because of that. It was just like, just sit here. This sucks. It's just boring. And then finally, when I started actively fishing, being proactive, casting all the time, and starting to get confidence catching fish on bass plugs, that's all I wanted to do. And there were many a day when he'd say, put that stuff down, you're wasting time. But I would walk a mile from him and come back and I'd have a stringer of fish, because back then we all kept fish, which now we don't. And if I were to get on that, that'd be a whole other thing, keeping fish. Any other questions?
So you call St. Pete your home now?
St. Pete's always been home for me, and I can tell you this with a clean heart. I've been to a lot of different places, visiting and for work and for travel in this industry, and there's only a few places I'd ever consider living. But I tell the kids all the time, I was like, you live in St. Pete, Florida, you live in a great spot. That's a great place to live. It really, truly is. For the most part, it's clean and it's safe, and you've got good restaurants, and you've got some of the best beaches in the country, and Major League Sports. I mean, we really have everything here. This is one of the great. That's why there's so many people that live here. It's this Tampa Bay is a great place to live. It's a great place to be from. I mean, I couldn't imagine living anywhere else. If I were going to pick a few places, there'd be a few of them I like. Like Charleston was nice. I eat my body weight in oysters there. Every night we would go to an oyster bar, and my camera guy would go like this. He goes, God, those things are like $18 a dozen. Those are like 21. I was like, we're writing all this off. It's either pay Uncle Sam or eat oysters. What do you want to do? I was like, it's on the card. So, Charleston's a nice place to live. I like it there. I tease Jessica all the time about maybe living more in North Florida, up on the nature coast a little bit, because I think that's a great place to live. And there's not as many people there fishing. You go out and fish, and if it's not scallop season, I mean, you can fish anywhere out there, and you don't see very many people pulling around in that shallow, rocky water. There's a lot of fish up there. But I go to the Keys for a couple of weeks every year, and she's convinced that we should live at the Keys. That'll take one hurricane to end that. For real. But no, this is a great place to live, and it's still a great, as much pressure is on this fishery, it amazes me what it produces from time to time. It's really a great place to live and a great place to fish. It truly, truly is.
You mentioned fishing in Louisiana.
Yes.
How's the living in that area?
Don't sound too relaxing. No, that's a tough place. The food is awesome, but I swear that's a pretty dirty place. I don't know if I could live in it. New Orleans is nice if you just visit there. To live there,
Where do you fish out of?
I fish out of a little place called Buras, Louisiana. Ryan Lambert has a lodge there. That's a big facility, can hold up to 35 anglers. Food is 4 to 5 stars. It's good food. He's got a bevy of guides there, and it's a safe place, it's clean, and it's close enough to some of the best fishing, literally the best inshore fishing in the whole country. I mean, there's Louisiana, and then I'd say the next stop is Alaska. I mean, it's that good. It's really, really good. Whether you offshore fish or you fish, you know, I went there, to give you an example, I fished with a lot of clients there. I fished for over 30 some odd days. And a typical day was catching 15 to 20, and this is during the off season when it's hot and fishing is not good and you're dealing with thunderstorms chasing you all day long, so you can't be in the prime zone all the time. But just running around, we sight fish 15 to 20 fish a day. Sometimes some guys caught 30. You know, some guys had perfect light, no storms, caught 30 a day. If I'm fishing, yeah, if you're a great fisherman, maybe you catch 50 fishing. Who wants to? You get tired of doing it. But it was hunting the best fish. My son came out there and spent 2 days with me because I hadn't got to see him very much the whole summer. I'm always inundated with tarpon charters, and then I'm out there, so I flew him out there, and that way I'd have someone to ride back with and keep me company. So he flew out there. You know him from the show. You've seen him on the show. He's a little tight now, but now he's getting a string bean. He's a pretty big kid. And we're out there, and he caught, his biggest red was 21 pounds. Biggest black drum was 42 pounds. All this was sight fishing. And he hooked 4 Jack Crevel that were all over 25 and only could get one to the boat. And when I went to go chase the school the next time, he said, no, I'm not throwing it, I'm not reeling it in. It was that good. So that's how good that place can really be. That's not the time of year. Typically October and November are much better when the water's perfect and the fish are coming in tight. That's when you really want to fish it. But I go there because I don't want to fish here in the summer that much. I don't want to battle here. It's easier there. The older you get, the smarter you get at this stuff. You fish where the fishing's easy.
What was the name of his line?
Cajun Fishing Adventures. Cajun Fishing Adventures.
That was just on TV, wasn't it, not too long ago?
Say that again, sir?
That show was just on TV.
Was it on TV? Yeah.
I think last Friday.
Was it with David Walker, the Bass Pro, or was it with Al Keller? Was it for drum, or was it for sheep's head and redfish? Drum, that was Al Keller. Al Keller was a guide here in Southwest Florida, and still does guide here in Southwest Florida during April and May for tarpon. Great fly guide, great light tackle guide. And his wife took a job up in New Orleans. She's like a critical care nurse or something. In other words, she makes a lot of money, so that's how it goes. And then Al started guiding out there, and I called him up and told him that the lodge owner wasn't going to be able to fish with me. Was he doing anything? Because the Louisiana guides are typically slow in the summer. He's like, I got nothing to do. I was like, I don't want to catch redfish. He goes, you're in Louisiana, what are we going to catch? He goes, I got a spot we can go to. He goes, if you don't mind lowering your standards and catching black drum. I was like, I do not mind lowering my standards. So we went out. It took me to drive from where I was, take the ferry, and get all the way over to where he was in Brenton Sound. It took me about a 2-hour drive. Then we drove 35 minutes east out into the Biloxi Marsh. And we actually landed in an island where I had fished a zillion times before. I was like, we're going here. And we started pulling in there. And he says, I hope you don't mind getting scratches on your boat. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, there's a lot of clump oyster on the bottom here. It's super, super shallow. I said, but you said the fish were like 3 and 4 feet long. He goes, oh, they are. But it's super, super shallow in here. They just sort of muck through it. They're all out of the water. So we go in there, and he's been fishing out of an old Maverick Mirage. Remember that boat? It drafts like about 11 inches of water. Well, that little Hell's Bay that I run drafts about 7.5 inches of water. We never ticked an oyster. Never, the whole time, other than with the push pole. We floated in there, and every fish we caught, I kid you not, was like at your shoes. You could go, it's like, you'd see him there, and you start throwing, it's like, no, wait till we're right there, and then you just go, and they just take off. It was crazy. It was crazy easy. It was crazy fun. We had the perfect couple of hours to do it, and then a thunderstorm came and chased us out of there. But you didn't want to catch any more than that. I mean, there was one fish that I literally held up that had to weigh 50 pounds, because I'm 6'5", its tail was on the ground, its head was right here. And it was all I could do to hold him there and grit my teeth and smile, and then get him back to the gunnel, and then get him back into the water. And then there was a few redfish in there, But they look so tiny next to those giant black drums that you didn't, but then one pushed across the middle of that huge bay, and it was big. You could tell it was a big fish. And it wasn't a drum because it had more of a deliberate path, and it wasn't flopping around or anything. Threw in front of that one, that turned out to be a 30-pound redfish. Would have won on Oktoberfest. But it was fun, and we caught all those. Anyone who's ever been there, it really doesn't matter what you throw, they'll eat anything, as long as it has to land though right here all the time. If it lands here, they don't see it. If it lands here, they don't see it. But if it lands right here, they see it every time. It's going to snap at it. It's aggressive strikes. But what a fun place to fish. We fished a lot of chatterbaits there. If you guys are familiar with the bass bait, which is a chatterbait, looks like it would never catch a fish. I've actually caught fish in Tampa Bay, redfish and mullet muds here in Tampa Bay. But there we were using a giant one to try to catch bigger redfish with David Walker. And he's if you don't know Dave fishes on the Evinrude national team, and he fishes for a lot of big companies. He's a Cabela's bass pro. He's been on the Bassmaster Elite Series for years, and longtime pro. He used to fish on the FLW Redfish Series. You probably remember David when he was fishing with his brother-in-law. And I mean, a machine. When you fish with guys, I fish with guys that are always high caliber guys that I end up fishing with. I mean, this is what we do for a living. And they're all capable of making certain shots. This guy was literally with a flipping stick. It was just a machine. Every little, and there was grass everywhere, milfoil all over these lakes that we were fishing in. And I mean, he would just sit there and dissect them. And he caught 7 or 8 sheep's head up to 4 or 5 pounds on chatterbaits. And caught several, probably 13 or 14 redfish in the same day. It was just pulling them around. I was like, wow, I guess I'm not fishing today. Because I'm not going to get shot at anything, especially if I point it out. I can't even point it out. So that reminds me of a story I had with Jimmy Huddleston. You guys might know Jimmy Huddleston. He's a local guide in Pinellas County. He fishes out of the Clearwater area. Guy's heart is like gold. He's like a 3rd or 4th generation fisherman. He wears no sunscreen like me and Mike. But he's one of those guys who most of his clientele is live bait clientele. And I called him up because I was in a pinch. I needed someone to help me out for a wintertime show. And I knew that area in Clearwater has a reputation for producing. You shut me up when I need to go. For big trout. And I fish up there a little bit, but I needed someone to fish with me that would give it some validation. So Jimmy's a well-known guide. He fishes a lot with Glenn Plaw on the Average Angler, so that's probably where you know that name. So Jimmy gets on board, and I show him the Paul Brown lure. You've heard me talk about the Paul Brown lure. It's from Texas. He looks at this and he goes, "This is what we're throwing today, huh?" Yep. Okay. So he's very skeptical right off the bat. So he starts to throw it, and I tell him, "You're working it too fast. You got to slow it down. Just rod tip up, bump, bump. Wait a second. Give it time to move around. And wheel some slack up, bump, bump." Well, after I showed him that, he proceeded to pretty much hoover or vacuum the entire flat of the trout. He took me to every, a spot that he had.